Ngakoue. And then what that does is this design play, basically expecting the blitz. This is a 3rd and 11. You throw the ball behind the line of scrimmage, and it's a first down. Then down in the red zone, they run 4 strong to the left. They're going to chip out again with Jonnu Smith. Watch what that does to Marcus Peters. Oh, okay, he's blocking. My attention's off of him, as well as every other zone defender underneath. It's a second down completion for about 2 yards that gets a first down. They later score. Then when you got to have it on a 2-point play, you don't think of them as a zone read team, but they can do it, and it's a walk-in score for Ryan Tannehill. I think the job that he did, designing plays, dialing them up at the right time, as evidenced by the 2-point play, he deserves a lot of credit. And I think a lot of people, maybe because it's not this high-flying offense typically that you see, other places, it doesn't look like Kansas City. It doesn't look like that. But it is so effective. It is well designed. It is well thought out. And it's been well executed by this football team.
Look, I have to admit, I'm an NFL fan that loves the drama as much as the outcome, so I need to go back to the trash talking going on. It started at the beginning of the game, Tim, and then we don't have the coaches shaking hands. What did you make of what you saw between these two squads?
Well, I was surprised. I thought that, the Titans were on the logo kind of before the game, doing who knows what.
Right.
And, it was surprising to see a head coach walk out there and kind of, be involved in some type of confrontation about what was happening pregame. And it didn't look like Mike Vrabel and Harbaugh, enjoyed their conversation pregame. But I will just say this. It's silly to me to not shake hands after a football game. That to me, if you're a head coach, regardless of what happens, I just don't think that is something that should happen. So that was, for me, honestly, that's disappointing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think at the end you should kind of bury the hatchet there and move on from it. Harbaugh, it'd be interesting to see if the Ravens would have won if he would have shook his hand. That would have been, you know what I'm saying? If it went the other way, which it could have, it would have been interesting to see the end of that one.
All right, you know what I want now, right? A rematch in the playoffs.
That's
exactly
right.
I want that drama to keep going. All right, guys, before we let you out of here, Tim, let me get some of your final thoughts on what you saw on this particular Sunday. Brian Flores and the status of Tua.
No, Tua wasn't injured. We just felt like it was the best move at that point in the game. We had to get in a 2-minute mode, and we just felt like he gave us the best chance to win the game, which we had an opportunity at the end.
My thoughts were whatever was going to be best for the team. We couldn't, when I was in, we couldn't really get things going. And, Coach felt like it was the best decision to put Fitz in to try to give us a spark. So when I heard that, it's really what's best for the team. And, if we were to win with Fitz in there, the locker room would be a lot different. Everyone would be a lot happier. But it just sucks to lose.
All right, so with that 5-game win streak snapped, the Dolphins fall to 6-4. A game behind the Bills there in the AFC East going into Week 12. Patriots, Jets, they don't really matter. It's a 2-team race right now. Tim Hasselbeck back in. What did you make of Brian Flores' decision to take Tua out? Not because of the injury, just because he thought his team needed a spark.
Yeah, well, it was surprising to hear him say that. When it happened, I wasn't exactly sure what the decision was because, as we saw in the highlight, Tua did get kind of rolled up on funny and been sacked a bunch in that game. They're down 10. And so I think there was an element that they clearly weren't playing well offensively. And so I thought that there was maybe a shot of, look, we can't protect him. It wasn't like they were blitzing their protections. They just had a hard time, winning the battle up front. And so because of that, he was getting hit. He was getting sacked. He comes down funny. And I thought in a 10-point game, he just maybe thought, look, we're going to take him out. Then as that game, kind of changed and Fitz did, give them a bit of a spark, and they caused a turnover, in their, inside their own 10-yard line, I thought, look, maybe they're going to put Fitz back out there because they think it gives him, it gives them their best chance to win. And it sounds like from Brian Flores, from Tua, that was the plan. So, look, I don't think it's a great move to do that often. I do feel like in this situation, in this football game, it was probably warranted. But if you're trying to develop a young quarterback, every time that guy is struggling and you're down 10, you can't be in a situation where you yank him out of the football game. You can't. Now, it almost worked against the Broncos today, but I don't think that is the right plan to develop a quarterback going forward. And so, I would be really cautious about doing it if that was the plan in those situations in the future.
And Flores did say after the game that Tua will be the starter for the Dolphins next game. So that's at least an indication that they still believe in him, but in this game trying to try a little something different. But let's go to the other side here, Rob.
Yep.
And that Broncos offense, especially the running game, what impressed you most about that today?
I mean, they ran 166 yards with 2 running backs. I mean, Lindsey was out there, Gordon was out there just running all over the football field. So when you have the ability to run the football, it takes the soul away from the defense. And the last few weeks, the Dolphins have capitalized on turnovers. Even in this game, interception sets up a score. Last week, interception sets up a score. So their ability to run the football, it sets the tone of the game. You create that time of possession to where you control the narrative. And when you're able to run the football like they had in this football game with success, it takes a little bit of your soul out of you as a defender. I've been there. I know how it feels. It's not a great feeling. The altitude's a little high right there, too, so you're even more winded. And at the end of the day, you can't win a football game giving up almost 200 yards on the ground.
Yeah, so we can talk about the quarterback situation, but for the Dolphins defense, allowing that many rushing yards from Denver. On the Packers to win it 34-31. Rivers had 3 touchdowns, and he threw a pick. And check out the largest blown leads the Packers have had with Aaron Rodgers as the starting quarterback. This one, wow, this one's going to hurt. This one's going to hurt for a while. Up 14 on the road, but they can't get it done. Tim, bring in this conversation because you're down 21-7, you're the Colts, but you got Phillip Rivers there. He's seen pretty much everything the NFL can throw at him, but to take his team sort of by the collar and force them to go down and tie the game, take the lead, what do you say about his performance?
Well, it's impressive, especially when you look at, that's now a 7-win football team. And so, the decision to sign Phillip Rivers is looking pretty good right now. And look, I think when you look at this game, there's a lot to digest from it because there are moments, like you saw in the highlight, where Aaron Rodgers is amazing. But then you have other plays in that game where he fumbles a quarterback exchange, and there's moments in that football game, as Rob was alluding to, in terms of what the second half looked like, a fumble on special teams, the inability to get a stop defensively. And so Green Bay that, at times has looked amazing, but yeah, I think the Colts had a pretty good recipe in the second half.
Well, that's a good question to consider here, Rob, because you look at where Green Bay was in terms of being up by 14, but how much of that has to do with what the Packers were not doing versus what the Colts were forcing them to do?
Well, I think in the first half, you saw the Colts they didn't know how to play. And you look at the defense, they were kind of just spot dropping. Aaron Rodgers was just throwing the ball all over the place. 3 touchdowns in the first half.
Right.
And then in the second half, it was like just a tale of 2 teams. The second half, they come out, defense tightens up a little bit more pressure on the quarterback, forcing fumbles in special teams. That always helps. When you can force a turnover on special teams, Cassius Marsh call out here, he forced that fumble.
Yep.
And hats off to Frank Ross, who took over for Bubba Ventrone, the special teams coordinator, went down right before this game with a positive COVID test. So Frank Ross steps in. Special teams plays great, and they were able to win this football game through special teams, playing physical up front on defensively. And you look at Rodgers at the end, he had a chance, but they weren't able to get it done. They turned it over, and the Indianapolis was able to capitalize on that.
Yeah, Tim, what do you make of the Packers offense considering where it started and where it ended up, especially there in the second half?
Well, they lost opportunities. I am surprised that Aaron Jones, only had 10 carries in this football game. I don't think that's really the recipe that Green Bay wants to win with. I just think there were elements of this for Green Bay that doesn't play well enough to win. I mean, this is pro football. Fumbling a quarterback exchange at this point in the season is kind of, unacceptable. And then, Aaron Rodgers turns this one over.